Welcome to the questions and answers segment here of GYROPalooza. Wow, we had a lot of amazing questions submitted. We were nearly 1,000 questions. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to answer every single one of them. However, there was a lot of reoccurring questions, so we will be able to get many of them with the frequently asked questions portion of this, as well as a lot of very unique questions here that we definitely want to touch on.
Wow, yeah, we've definitely blown away with the Q&A submissions. Like Brad said, nearly 1,000 questions, and so it's a good time at the end of the year to sit down and read through your feedback and questions and your interests of what we're doing behind the scenes and what we're working on and some of the successes we've had in the previous year. So it's exciting to go through and answer them for you.
So I guess we'll get ready to dive right into it. So we'll start off with the most frequently asked questions. The number one question by far: when can we expect more molds in Eclipse? And probably the most common request was Eclipse Grave, but there was a lot of other common requests. So yes, I guess let's talk about Eclipse plastic. So Eclipse plastic, it is, wow, it's an amazing product. It's one of our most exciting developments to make a glow plastic this bright. However, it is definitely one of our more difficult ones to produce. The glow pigment is very particular about the mold that is being injected in. There's some certain characteristics of the glow plastic that make it more difficult. A lot more tooling development needs to be done to be able to make a mold compatible for glow plastic. So that's kind of the main reason why we haven't launched it in our full lineup, really. But we do plan to make this a priority going into next year and following years to expand the glow lineup with an incredible Eclipse plastic, really.
We want to bring more throughout the lineup, and like Brad hinted on, unfortunately the formula used is very aggressive to the molds required for Eclipse. So that's where me and my team, we have to develop molds specialized for Eclipse 2.0. And unfortunately, molds, as we all know, it's a lengthy design and development process. But the good news is it's not our first time around with Eclipse 2.0. So we're aggressively looking through our lineup and planning ahead to choose what models we can introduce from the years forward.
We definitely expect a lot more options going into the next year. I would expect us to hit some of our popular drivers by next year, and as well as more of just the putters and mids that we've got. Obviously, you're going to see the Eclipse Glitch make a stock release eventually after GYROPalooza. So a lot more to come, that's for sure. Another very common request or question: updates for GYRO-X.
Yeah, GYRO-X is a new overmold technology. We've been working on it for a number of years now. It's posing to be very challenging on the manufacturing side of things. It's definitely a curveball that we're trying to overcome. The design is straightforward, but the manufacturing is the limitation. So we're trying to work through some of those limitations. Hard to say if and when we'll get there, but again, we're always going to keep innovating in ways that we can possibly do so. But this one's taking a little bit longer than we anticipated.
Admittedly, with the Gyro-X beam being a distance driver, and with the recent signing of Simon Lizotte, and we're going to be introducing the Simon line, priority was with the time lapse. So at this point, that's going to be a priority. We're going to make sure we get that filled out, but we're going to try. We're not giving up on it yet.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of molds between the Simon line and James Conrad line that we're wanted to make sure we don't forget about and expand upon. So Gyro-X, still technology on our radar, but it's definitely going to take some more time to figure it out.
The next most common question was: when can we expect more molds in Electron plastic, especially Electron entropy? So Electron plastic, just like Eclipse, is also very challenging. Despite it being one of the easiest plastics to make a solo mold disc, when it comes to making an overmold disc, Electron plastic is actually very difficult.
With Electron plastic, the main issue we're posed with is the high injection pressures of the overmold cause the entire disc to warp, especially the flight plate area being so thin. With Electron plastic, it's a much less durable material than, say, our premium plastics. And with that durability, it's much more suspect to warping during that overmold process. So unfortunately, Electron overmold's a little bit more challenging than we're used to with our TPU premium plastics.
And we've tried many different baseline plastics. We've done dozens of trials of different baseline plastics, not just the current iterations, it's just any type of baseline plastic. when you work with the polyurethanes, proton, neutron, plasma, it's just on a different league of durability. So,
but we did have a great breakthrough.
Yeah, we did.
So recently, through all these iterations and tests with, trying to figure out the Electron overmolding, we did have a breakthrough on the manufacturing side that seems to have opened up our window of processing dramatically. So we're holding our breath. We're going to be building some, new equipment and some tooling to accommodate this new breakthrough on a production scale.
There's definitely hope.
There's definitely good hope.
Another common one, when can we expect more molds in fission plastic? I definitely agree with that one. As with the explosion and growth with Simon Lizotte, we've had to focus priorities on a lot of other priorities, but I definitely want to make a comeback with the fission plastic. It's one of my favorite plastics. Personally, my bag, I've been switching out a lot more fission. I'm trying to build out an all fission bag myself. So I definitely look forward to us bringing back more fission plastic. It's going to make a comeback as far as being part of more new releases. Will MVP be signing any more top-tier players? We are definitely in active discussions with some top players. So obviously they're just discussions. They may or may not lead to big signings. We're not sure, but we are actively looking. That's for sure. When can we expect more apparel? Was another very common one, and we agree. It's definitely past due for us to expand our apparel offerings. We've added some options this year, but we are looking to do more. We're definitely taking it more seriously. With the explosive growth of disc golf in 2020, 2021, 2022, we're finally in a little bit more comfortable position to start branching out into more of these other products, including apparel. So it's definitely taken much more seriously. I think that we're not that far out, but it does take time. So definitely something we're taking more seriously at this point. Another very common one was about the inconsistency in discs and various examples throughout the lineup. And I guess Chad can kind of talk about the process as far as why does that happen and why does it exist?
Yeah, when it comes to manufacturing, there's only generally one way to get it right and 1,000 ways to get your processes wrong. And our goal is to document and record every single variable that we practically can and monitor those. So in our case, that's part of building the best disc golf factory in the world. Like, it's something that we're actively growing and adding, processing control in all of our variables across everything you can think of, everything from humidity levels to your mold temps to your plastic temps to anything in between. So that's our goal about, our factory side, to be able to control these variables. But in discs in particular, quite challenging, mostly because of the materials used are very soft and flexible. Most plastic injection molded parts are usually a harder material where they're dimensionally stable. Whereas if you pick up a disc golf disc, that pliable material at such a decent sized diameter, the rim thickness is quite large in cross section. So you're dealing with a geometry material combination that's actually pretty challenging. Now, thankfully, again, with our factory, with all state-of-the-art equipment and monitoring all variables possible, we do boast ourselves having the highest, consistency, but it's still a very, very, very tight window to get perfect. And it's something we're always trying to expand upon, but definitely a very high challenge to solve.
When it comes to the consistencies of a disc, especially in those higher speed distance drivers where the dimensional tolerances are much more extreme, as little of a difference of 1/10 of a millimeter or 1/4 millimeter is enough to make a disc fly like a very different disc. So the tolerances required are very, very tight. And when the disc comes out of a mold, it is very warm and very pliable, as Chad was saying, and it shrinks. That plastic shrinks considerably, and that causes the dome to shrink. And so what happens to that disc when it comes out of the mold is that the dimensions are constantly changing as it comes out. And the conditions of which that plastic was molded and the conditions in which the disc are out. We have a climate controlled facility, but it's still very difficult to hold the tolerances to fractions of a millimeter. Certain colors have certain impacts to the way a disc cools and shrinks. And even with materials of similar geometry, we'll get different lots of material from our suppliers. They're the same chemistry, they've got the same technical data sheet specs, but they will behave very differently. We work with some of the biggest chemical companies, multinational chemical companies. They've got resources to make consistent chemistry in the product, and even though they've got similar chemistries, when it comes to injecting it, you'll get different results back to back. So It's very difficult. Even though the properties and chemistry is similar, different lots of material will behave very differently.
We have a new quality lab, and we've worked with our material suppliers on ways to test our lots for consistency. Being able to identify your material issues before they're molded is pretty paramount, and it's something we haven't done over these years. So we're excited to introduce that new equipment to be able to identify issues before they become a problem. So that's going to be another key factor for us.
Obviously the moisture checks, that's something I'm sure we've elaborated on. The plastic has to have a moisture content less than 0.03%. That's very, very small. If the moisture content just creeps up to 0.04%, we will start to notice a difference in the way that just comes out. So it's even just that microscopic amount of moisture is enough to cause.
And emphasize, not 0.3%, 0.03%.
0.03%.
It's an incredible low amount of moisture.
Once that plastic hits 0.04%, you start to see differences, and we've got advanced dehumidifying equipment in the systems, and we're trying to do everything we can to reduce that moisture. And we've made some great strides, but it's not easy. That's for sure.
Yeah, we put a lot of pride into how we process our material, and again, being able to test for moisture requires very sophisticated equipment that we work with our manufacturer's recommendation of what's the best equipment to test for moisture, what's the best equipment to test for melt flow index. And so this is equipment that we are introducing in our new lab, so we know over time as we further improve our quality checks both with raw material and our disc geometries, we're on the right road.
Another very common one, when will the Simon line be available? Well, the time lapse is right around the corner, Black Friday, along with the GYROPalooza box, and the Pixel also coming, planning for that one to be available in early 2024. And it's going to continue to grow beyond that, but we're very excited. I think Simon's very excited. These discs were designed per his request, they fit his game, so a lot more to come with the Simon line, but we are not that far away at this point.
In addition to the time-lapse and Pixel coming out, we've already had preliminary discussions on the next models that we're developing. So, as we get excited for the launch of these two molds, we're already working on the next one. So it'll be a non-stop Simon line expansion.
MVP makes baskets, discs, towels, claws, bags, storage, and a lot of other non-disc products. Do we plan to expand upon that? Absolutely. So, as you may know, we have a very comprehensive line of baskets, bags, and accessories already. We definitely want to focus on them. Some products we want to expand on, like the Rover Cart series. Right now it's just one option. We have some ideas on how we want to expand on that and improve the designs there. The disc storage, the disc racks, the disc station, we have more options there. So absolutely, that's definitely going to get more attention now that we're starting to kind of catch up with this demand. Another very frequently asked question was about the order form availability. And we definitely admit, we are aware that the order form for our dealers is very bare. A lot of stuff out of stock. But as we go into this winter season, we expect our inventory to replenish. As the season slows down, our production capacity will catch up. So we expect our products to become more readily available, both stock and custom stamp, in the coming months.
Yeah, with the Simon signing, it was a pretty quick conversation that developed and signed that contract, but unfortunately the timing of which was at the end of the year when our inventory was pretty well unprepared for the explosion that we received when we signed Simon. So it was a fair bit of a catch-up game when we signed, and now that we have this full off-season, replenishment will be very easy to fulfill.
Yeah, typically we rely on the slow season to build our inventory, and we didn't sign Simon until right at the start of the year. So it was kind of a crazy sprint to try to get stuff back, build up our inventory before the explosion took place. But as Chad mentioned, as we go into the slower season, as capacity will definitely catch up with the slower season, and we'll rebuild our inventory to a level where we'll be more prepared going into next season. So how do we determine when a mold will be branded under MVP, Axiom, or Streamline? I guess that'd be a good one for you to elaborate on in the design process.
That's a good question. When we do mold selection process, it's definitely an overview of all of our lineups, including James and Simon line, and MVP and Axiom and Streamline, we like to take a overview of all the lineups and try to fill the holes accordingly. A lot of times we'll be talking with our players about asking, what is missing from your bag. It's a team effort to listen to a lot of feedback and then look at our overall lineup and fill holes accordingly.
Is there a way to buy spare parts for portable baskets, poles, or chains? Absolutely. Contact our customer service team. We have a very robust warranty process. Very easy process. Just contact them and they'll help you out. So is there a reason why there is no cosmic plasma? That's a good question. As you know, we've got neutron plastic and we've got cosmic neutron plastic. And that technology works with the plasma plastic. And so we kind of had to make a decision. Do we also want to make a cosmic plasma? We definitely debated this one heavily. And we ultimately decided that since plasma is a non-uniform plastic, the pearly effect, we felt that it was appropriate to mix cosmic and non-cosmic into that. Whereas something like Electron plastic is more uniform in its color, we felt that neutron needed a separate plastic. But for plasma, cosmic plasma mixed with regular non-cosmic plasma, we felt was the best way to go. So Fission Zenith, is that going to be coming soon? And admittedly, this was a broken promise in our last GYROPalooza. I was convinced that we were going to be making the Fission Zenith. It was a high priority of this year, and unfortunately ran into some technical challenges with it, just unforeseen. This particular model has a very specific flight characteristic that we were going after. We had to mold it in a certain way to get that geometry, and unfortunately when we tried to mold it in the fission plastic, it just didn't fly like we wanted, so we chose not to release it. But I was looking forward to it, but unfortunately it didn't hit the flight target that we were wanting to, so it's at least on the back burner for now. Can MVP finally share more about Remix and how it fits into the big picture? I think it's a good time to elaborate on Remix and what was the goals behind Remix. So Remix is kind of a big part of our mission of sustainability. We've set the bar really high in our quality standards for our OEM partners as well as our own lineup. As you know, we make discs for Mint Discs, ThoughtSpace Athletics, and we set the bar very high for their products. And just like any manufacturing process, there's a lot of second quality that's still a good product, but maybe it's not that top tier quality we're going after. So Remix discs are really just an outlet for some second quality, but it's still sold at reasonable prices through outlet retail channels. So if you want something of top tier quality, we encourage you to check out our OEM partners. They sponsor players, they support events, they do a lot of great things for disc golf. We're very happy to work with them, so we would encourage everyone to support them. But if you want something that's affordable and the quality is second tier quality is okay, it's a great way for you to get affordable plastic is Remix discs. And also just to go along with the economy second quality discs, also got some economy materials for baskets and bags just to support the line, just to kind of reach new markets to where maybe price is more important than quality. If you want better build quality, you're going to want to look at maybe other options in the black hole basket lineup. But if you really want an affordable economy basket, that's kind of what Remix is there for. Same thing with the disc. The top tier discs are going to be part of the MVP wholesale umbrella or our OEM clients. But Remix is just another option of second quality.
Will all Axiom rims be swirled moving forward? That's a good question. Swirled rims and Axiom was definitely an exciting thing to roll out this year. It was something we've been working on for a couple of years. I had a couple of tests that didn't really turn out too well, but this last test worked out very well, more than I expected, to be honest. So it's something that we'll definitely have a lot of, but we also want to make sure we don't exclude some solid color rims and Axiom. So I would say a hefty majority, but we can always dial it back if it gets too much saturation in the market.
Definitely not all of them.
Yeah,
definitely not all of them. But
we have control of how much we can release. So far it's pretty hefty, but we can always dial it back if we need to.
Yeah, right now they're hot stuff. They look amazing. So as long as everyone wants them, we'll keep making them. But there'll always be some regular options as well. Did Simon's signing show numbers of growth more or less in the Conrad throw-in? Good question. Both of them have done tremendous things for MVP. I would say the Conrad throw-in had a larger impact for a moment of time it was such an extraordinary moment. It was just one of those moments that everyone remembers where they were, what they were doing when that happened, and it kind of just had that kind of impact for MVP's growth. I mean, our largest numbers came from that era for sure, but Simon's signing has been very steady for a long duration. So I mean, both of them have done tremendous things for MVP. So both incredible athletes to be working with, and just it's amazing what they've both been able to accomplish, really.
Yeah, and with the introduction of the Simon line, we know as we spend more time with Simon, as he spends more time with our discs over these 10 years that we have with him, we know that we're going to have, you know, many new molds, many new flights that we can fulfill. So I suspect this growth will be, you know, well sustained.
When will GYROPalooza be in person again? We don't know. Disc golf has grown so much since 2019, pre-COVID, so much that we're not sure how we could handle the capacity that would be required to do it. At least for now, our recommendation for anyone who wants to have that in-person GYROPalooza experience, our recommendation is consider attending MVP Open. Steve Dodge has set the bar really high with MVP Open. Such an amazing location for an amazing event. The scenery is just amazing. #1 course in the world. So there's a lot of GYROnauts, obviously, with it being the MVP Open. That's really the closest experience you can get. So at least until if we're able to, that's our recommendation, is consider attending MVP Open. When will we have another watermelon driver? I think the watermelon trend will definitely continue. I like doing it in circuit events. It seems really well received. Nice little treat for those who take the effort to run circuit events. I think next year might be the watermelon pitch. I definitely one of the ones we're eyeing up. So maybe not next year, but in following years, I think there's a high probability that we will do more drivers.
And another idea here is, now that Simon line is a part of Axiom, it's a possibility to consider for future years. So maybe one day it could be a Simon line watermelon edition.
That's definitely an option. Let's see, what releases are you most proud of for 2023? I like the Total Eclipse Hex. I think the Total Eclipse plastic in general is just really kind of an accumulation of our technologies. Every single color combination of that Total Eclipse is just amazing. So at that point, I would consider that kind of the epitome of our plastic developments, although we've had so many great ones. I know, that's my choice. But
yeah, I'd say my favorite this year would be the Eclipse 2.0 glitch, which, you know, that'll be coming in the GYROPalooza box. There's just something about the glitch being such a fun catch hybrid disc. Again, caught us by surprise on how popular it was going to be. You know, Simon Lizotte, you know, he said one of the top 10 reasons he signed with us was the glitch. So, you know, everyone needs to try one. And in this case, now we have the glow version. I'm excited to give it a throw.
we knew that the glitch was going to be something very unique, but we didn't expect it to be this big, that's for sure. So what is the #1 priority for production right now? I think definitely getting most of our discs back in stock, as we've had a lot of new releases for Simon line, the GYROPalooza here. I think as the winter season comes along, it's going to be our opportunity to build up our inventory so that we are more prepared going into next year. Are there plans to open a pro shop at the Marlette, Michigan factory? No active plans. We're in a rural community that's not very disc golf heavy, so not really a priority for us, but really, if you want an in-person shopping experience, we recommend just support your local retailer. You know, all the retailers that carry our full lineup, they've been great partners over the years, so we definitely encourage everyone to support the retailers. Will we ever see a low glide throwing putter? That's a good question. Opposite of the glitch.
Yeah, we actually do have a couple of drafts for some overmolded, low glide throwing putters. It is a good flight characteristic to have in a lineup. We are running into some limitations on the bringing it to high volume. There's a lot of automation involved that need to be compatible with that design or that type of design, and we are running into some limitations there. However, we are exploring potentially an alternative into the Streamline, lineup. Since Streamline hasn't gotten enough spotlight over the years, we're kind of looking into that, fulfillment.
At least until we can figure it out with an overmold version. Maybe we'll have a streamlined version that we'll be able to put out sooner. So, always working on it. What is the greatest challenge at overmolding discs at production volume? Well, overall, producing large quantities of disc is not that hard, really. We've got the machines in high capacity to do it. The challenge is leveling the production with the demand. With new releases, we get extreme periods of demand in short times, and when we'll open up a new release, we'll get 80% of our month's orders on a single day. And so, that high volume of demand in a short period is hard, because your production can only be done at a constant rate, and so we typically try to balance our production to its average monthly capacity and then try to produce that way. So leveling the fluctuations in demand is definitely the biggest challenge, as well as seasonality. As spring comes along, disc golf demand skyrockets, and then when the winter season comes, it slows down. So just trying to equalize with those ups and downs when production is ideally done at a constant rate. So leveling the demand is definitely the biggest challenge at this point, more so than anything. We've got extra capacity than what we need, but we don't want to overbuild our capacity more than what's necessary. So just finding that average monthly demand and meeting at that is definitely our biggest challenge. But we are definitely honing in as we get more sales data, and as Simon has joined us, we're starting to learn what type of demand he brings on, so we're able to really scale up production to where is necessary. So have we considered doing different sizes of GYROPalooza boxes? We have done that a few years ago. One of the challenges that we face with that is when you go smaller in the box, the cost of shipping becomes a bigger portion of that box. The deal is not as good. And we've also done a mega pack size where it was much bigger than normal. And unfortunately, that was just a price point that's just too big. So we kind of try to go in the middle of the bell curve of what gives us the best price per disc, but yet something that's affordable. So we kind of go for the middle because it kind of caters to most audiences.
What has been the turnaround time for a disc creation like the time lapse from idea, testing to approval and release? That's a great question. The time lapse was actually one of our quickest turnarounds for from design to production. Especially because since we signed Simon so early in the season, we wanted to rush the process to at least catch 2023. But normally we like to budget 1 year from idea to finished product. It's just good to have a little bit of buffer because when it comes to molds, it's something we try not to rush. In particular, molds are very high precision tools, and if you rush that process or if you try to cut any corners, it does pose risks, to maybe quality issues or production issues. In most cases, we try not to rush that process too much because then you can run into issues.
And when it comes to high precision molds, the molds that we build have tolerances that are in the hundredths of a millimeter. Very, very high precision to not have the flash seam on the bottom of the disc, things like that. So high precision molds take a long time. When the molds are being cut, you're talking hundredths of a millimeter of material being removed at a time. So it takes a really long time to machine a high precision mold. So it really takes months to go through the process.
Yeah, and with that precision now, you can pick up any one of our discs, and in particular, that bottom edge area near the rim, you'll see a lot of flash on a lot of companies' discs, but we pride ourselves on really reducing that amount of flash because that's a high contact point when you're throwing. So it's a lengthy process, but the end result is a higher quality product.
Could you make everything in every plastic? I wish we could. Unfortunately, certain plastics have certain limitations on what molds they can be done in, and you'd be surprised at how many plastics don't work in certain molds. And it's just certain plastics, just the properties, whether it's the weight or the flexibility or just the kind of the fit and finish of that particular mold. It's tough. Some of the more challenging ones would be Electron and Eclipse. Those ones are definitely more difficult, but yeah, unfortunately not every mold and every plastic. Tell us about the pitch and parachute. Good question. I'll let Chad talk about those.
So taking a step back, the glitch, wildly popular, hybrid catch disc. It's a new category that really hasn't been touched, and we nailed it, and it's popular. And so we said, well, what about our other lineups? Now we're going to be doing a complementary disc, a complementary hybrid catch disc in all of our lineups. So MVP will have the glitch, Axiom will have the pitch, and Streamline will have the parachute. Each of their flights will be slightly complementary. So across the board, based on your branding or slight flight preference, you'll have an option for each brand.
Will there be more molds released in Soft Proton? I love the feel of it, and so do I. The Soft Proton runs that we did, especially for the OTB Open editions, some of that soft plastic, in my opinion, was some of our best feeling plastic. However, it is also one of our most difficult plastics to work with. Soft plastic in general is very pliable, easy to warp and bend out of shape, even after it's cured. But when that disc is coming off the machine, it's warm, it's orders of magnitude more pliable, and orders of magnitude more susceptible to becoming warped. Even though we've got some advanced high precision automation robots that are pulling these molds and putting them on the fixtures, it's still hard to get that disc to come off the mold without having any type of warp or deformations. But I would expect that we might do more limited releases of the soft plastics just because the plastic feels so amazing, but it is definitely very challenging to do on a large volume production run. Everyone asks questions about what you guys are doing, but I want to know how you guys are doing. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Doing very well. I feel like I'm doing better than I deserve. Family life, balancing a busy family and work life. Couldn't be happier with both of them, really. I've got a daughter that's about to turn 5 that can start playing disc golf soon. 2 younger boys that are going to be able to play. So I look forward to the kids being old enough to be able to play disc golf with them, that's for sure.
Yeah, how am I doing? That's a great question. Doing well. These past several years have been remarkable on the business side of things, and married, beautiful wife, and we just now had our first son. He's just a couple weeks away from turning 1. To joy, so it's good to have a balance of work and family life, and overall, fantastic. With MVP having overmold technology, it seems that a floating disc would be really easy to produce. Unfortunately, it is definitely a lot more challenging than you would expect. In our case, most of our plastics are premium plastics, TPU in particular. TPU is a premium plastic by itself is not, doesn't float. And so in order to make it float, you'd have to add a lot of fillers that float, or you have to add gas bubbles.
Typically, to get a disc to float, you'd have to use plastics that are much lighter. And our molds were designed for the premium polyurethane plastics, but our molds are not really designed for the lighter weight plastics because gyro technology is about adding weight to the rim. So when you're having molds that were designed to add weight to that rim, not really conducive with making them float, because we're kind of doing the opposite. We're trying to add weight to it, not make them light. Does MVP or Axiom sell more? MVP has always been the top selling brand, although Axiom is closing the gap really closely. They are both neck and neck, which is interesting to see, but that's a good question. Another question, is Eclipse 3.0 in the works? So is the glow not bright enough, or is it too bright? I guess is a good question. Ironically, we have done a batch of glow that had twice the amount of concentration of our glow technology. One technical limitation with that is that the glow material is heavy. So the disc weighed like 190 grams or something like that. It was just overweight. So we're kind of at a limit of how much glow we can put into the disc before it starts becoming too heavy because of the heavy glow pigment that's being added into it. Will there be smaller boxes with select styles, such as a putter box, mid-range box? Actually, starter box sets have been very popular this year, and we will be adding some additional options. We are working on a putter pack box, as well as a 3-disc plus bag set, as well as expanding on the R2 Neutron options. So yes, we will be doing more starter set boxes. They've been very popular.
What was the inspiration to start a disc manufacturing company? We were disc golfers for a number of years. I just remember one summer I had a rubber band around my wrist, and for whatever reason I stretched it around the perimeter of a golf disc, and we were just kind of joking like, oh, that'd be kind of a unique feature that would maybe grab the chains better when you were putting.
It was also inspired by the program that you were working on at Maple Valley.
Yeah, that's right. So during that time we were disc golfing, in our summers, we worked in our father's injection molding company, mostly automotive, and some jobs in particular were overmolding. And one job in particular, it was a car door handle, where it was using a firmer material for the center and a softer, grippy material on the outside edge for a better feeling door handle. And that kind of combined with that rubber band wrapped around the outside of a disc, we're like, well, it can be done, so why don't we give it a shot? And that, was the first run ion, as we all know. And the technology evolved into turning that into gyro technology, where we were using weight filler to increase the gyroscopic. So it was kind of an evolution of, a softer, grippy overmold into now the, final form of gyro technology.
As a physics teacher, the overmold technology makes a lot of sense for increasing moment of inertia. Why do you think other companies didn't pick up with the idea? I think overall, just because it's very difficult to make an overmold disc compared to just a one-piece solo mold disc. So I think it's just a challenge, and considering that we were kind of in a situation where we worked with our father's company that had the resources and the know-how to do that, I think was a big part of it. I think, as you can see, other companies have tried and they struggle with it. It's definitely very difficult to do.
Has there been any movement with the disc throwing machine? That's a good question. Simon, he broke the ice on that one. However, the one he's working on is, a third-party, venture. He's working on himself and another partner. But with that said, we do have an internal program where we are working on, a throwing machine, different in nature, maybe different goals and applications. But so there'll be technically two, throwing machines in the works.
Here's one. Have you made a rim without the center? Well, we have tried it before. These here is what happens when you try to make an overmold without the core component inside. Probably the world's worst boomerang, I guess, is what you can call it. We call them boomerangs, but
this is a time lapse for if you're curious to know what mold that's coming from. It's a byproduct,
of the process.
Yeah.
Normally the plastic gets injected, wraps around the core, but when there's no core to mold onto, it just kind of forms this little boomerang shape. So that's what happens when you try to mold a rim without a core.
And I guess, I could, maybe explain a little bit as to why that happens. This mold is designed to inject with a center core. Since the mold is designed with that in mind, when you remove that component, injecting through the side here of a mold, the tool design is just not, going to fill a whole complete part. It can be done, but it would require a different tool that's optimized for that process. But with the tool as is, removing the center part and injecting, this is what you get. Yep. A special plastic blend that looked way cooler than expected. I would say our recent overmold swirls, with a couple of tests that didn't really turn out too well. I had my expectations a little lower than I wanted, but the final test, dramatic improvement off the first test. So I'm very, very excited to see them roll out.
Even the first Cosmic in general was kind of blowing. We were kind of like shocked, like, whoa, this is really different. And obviously Cosmic has gone through many iterations. Like that first iteration was like, wow, this is very different. But yeah, Cosmic has changed a lot over the years as well. So. Can we get a watermelon hex in the GYROPalooza packs? Well, watermelon hex is sold out. It has been a very popular one this year. We do have some watermelon paradox left over, but they are definitely getting scarce as well. What you might see, again, this would be very rare. When we were doing the production on the watermelon disc, we were experimenting with that overmold color. We were trying to make like a swirly green, like the dark and light green mix. And I know there were some that had like a little bit of a blue tint because there's a little bit too much blue color there. So there was definitely some that were like slightly off color watermelon disc in the pack. But again, they'd be rare, but there were some of those in the packs. Do you foresee the cost of discs going up in the near future? I don't expect it to go up significantly, although we have been faced with a lot of increasing cost. The raw material market has cooled considerably, but costs are going up everywhere. With gasoline prices causing inflation, costs of everything going up. But overall, we've been able to absorb those costs and try to keep our manufacturing as competitive as possible. And I don't foresee any significant cost increases in the immediate future.
Tell us about the moment you had making the first gyro disc. You know, after the development of the mold and getting ready to make the first gyro disc. And it was an exciting moment. We were all, pretty anticipated on the first shots from the mold, but our results were definitely not what we expected. The first disc came off the mold and it felt like a piece of glass. It was clear, it was as tough as glass, it has no flexibility at all. And so we were very perplexed because we were shooting for a clear, like proton-like material. And it turns out the sample material that we requested from the supplier was mislabeled. It was actually polycarbonate, which is a very durable material.
We're lucky that didn't damage the mold. It was just an aluminum mold. We were on a shoestring budget, and that plastic could have almost damaged the mold. So we were lucky there. But it was funny because when we got another sample from the supplier, they sent us another mislabeled batch, and it was the same problem. So
yeah,
it took a lot of iterations like that to really finally get it.
Yeah, same issue twice in a row. It was very perplexing.
And then eventually we did get the right plastic from the supplier, and we eventually molded it. And there are some interesting prototypes that had just bubbles throughout the rim, and just like the plastic was like yellowed and degraded, and it's just we didn't have any knowledge of this specific material, and it was very difficult to learn to process. But it took upwards of 3 years to really try to get a disc at least to the condition of what the first run ion was like. But it took years after that to really get it really perfected to kind of where we are now. What are you happiest from a company standpoint this 2023? I definitely would have to say the staff. We have an incredible team at MVP. Every department really has gone above and beyond to really help MVP and be where it is today. So just, huge amount of gratitude for the staff, really.
Wondering why the Vector went out of production. That's a fair question. And I'll kind of take a little bit step back and kind of look at that as a lineup of mid-ranges. We axed a lot of the, the Vector, Axis, and many of those that shared that same mid-range core. But to answer your question as to why, it's one of those things where we're always getting better. On my side of things, when it comes to disc design, trying to make disc improvement both per performance, the forgiveness of who's throwing the discs, making it more forgiving for beginners as well as being capable for higher caliber players. Being able to make a disc that a pro and beginner to perform well with is really the ultimate goal. You want everyone to be able to pick it up and perform well. And so the Vector being a good example, it was not very forgiving. You had to have very clean form. If you had a little bit of off-axis torque, it would not, do well. So, taking a step back, getting rid of a lot of our old dated mid-ranges, in our lineup, it was a pretty scary moment. I remember a lot of fans were very questioning our sanity and why are we doing such a, terrible thing. But fast forward to now, I'm quite proud of our mid-range lineup, and we get a lot of feedback from our team members and players alike that we have probably the strongest mid-range lineup in the game. So it's a tough thing to do, but to answer your question, it is just about constant improvement and innovation, in just design.
Yeah, Simon and James both really like the mid-range lineup. We had a lot of compliments from them, but I would agree. I was a big fan of the Axis myself. I was afraid to lose the Axis, but we've got a lot of great options. I like them all. I know it sounds cliche to say that, but I felt like the impression I got from the fans was our mid-range lineup was definitely the weaker portion of our lineup back in 2018, 2019. But at this point, I think our mid-range lineup is probably amongst our strongest in the lineup. That and our putters, and I think that in the coming years, I think we've learned a lot in our disc design. That I think that we'll kind of apply a lot of what you've learned to kind of make better designs. We only get better at what we do. So future designs, I think, only get better. If you guys were abducted by aliens, what disc are you giving them first to try out disc golf? It's gotta be the Electron Envy, and specifically the one that has that incredible stamp that ZAM made. The one stamp that ZAM made for the Electron Envy. It showed the Envy made headlines for the aliens, so that's gotta be the first disc that we give them.
Why are plasma discs typically dark and kind of muddled colors? That's a good question, and it's something we're actively working on. You know, along with our cosmic technology and swirl rims, dark plasma colors is something that we have a couple ideas that we're going to try. Part of it's related to the automated coloring equipment that we're in the works on. Once that's finished, we're going to apply some tests that we have to see if we can get brighter colors in plasma. So, good question, and it's
in
something
general,
we're
I
aware
guess
of.
one thing I want to add to that, you know, like when you mention like brownish colors or off colors, they're definitely a very small percentage of what you get out of the cosmic plasma or just plasma in general. Usually when you have certain color transitions, certain colors don't transition very well. So they are quite few and far in between. I think kind of a reason why is that just some of those kind of transitional colors don't sell well, and I think that's why that people have seen them in the stores. But when you actually look through the inventory of what we're producing, you know, the off colors are definitely far and few in between. It's about minimizing, you know, that 1 or 2% that come through, maybe that don't mix as well. But as Chad mentioned, our new color mixing technology definitely improves that process, that's for sure. Can you talk about the long-term goal for the MVP Pro Shop? Absolutely. So, you know, MVP Pro Shop kind of has a certain target type of product in mind. A lot of it is kind of various prototype and test run products, as well as kind of various team MVP products to support them. So a good example, the prototype Simon line, and I guess any prototype in general. We kind of have preliminary prototypes where we make only a few hundred. We also got feasibility study prototypes where maybe we make a few thousand. So prototypes are generally very small quantities of production runs. And if we were to sell them to thousands of retailers, you have to have a very small quantity of them to the retailers. So overall, MVP Pro Shop is kind of those very limited quantities. When it came to something like the Simon line, you know, as significant as it was, we wanted to give that to the dealers. But the one downside is it is a very small quantity. So like that's kind of why retailers only got 10. It's just because it was a very limited quantity. So, you know, we could either, you know, use the Pro Shop for these prototypes or the retail outlets for these very limited quantities. One of our goals is try to figure out how can we offer products like this through the MVP Pro Shop, but also involve dealers and kind of help satisfy kind of both ends of the market. And we have some ideas there, and the platform we had, while it was capable of high volume of traffic, there's definitely some features that we wanted to get out of the Pro Shop that were not going to be easy to achieve with the last website. So we've got some plans for that. That's going to be able to be more feature rich and give us more flexibility with what we can do for the Pro Shop.
How do you balance quality control with market demand involved with having some of the best disc golfers in the world? That's a good question. Yeah, and that's exactly what we've been going through for the past couple of years. There is a misconception that, you know, increasing, you know, production volume can start to diminish quality. In some cases that is true. But with the way we are approaching this is introducing automation into our processes. Before automation, a lot of things were hand done, you know, whether it was, you know, mixing colors by hand, which can, you know, make a lot of bad colors, or, you know, you're handling the disc, which can cause warp and, you know, in fact, parting lines and dome. So with our goal of increasing production, it's introducing automation, and automation is very rigid and very repeatable. So once it's dialed in, it doesn't deviate. So, you know, robots are very good at what they do repeatedly with exact measurements every single time. So with all this automation coming through the factory, one, it's making things more, you know, repeatable and repeating the targets that we're hitting for all these, you know, domes and parting lines and flight plate thicknesses. And meanwhile, it's actually improving the quality of life for our staff. You know, they don't have to do the very repeating, mundane tasks like cutting the sprue off every single disc. Like, no one wants to do that. So it's actually alleviated our staff. They can do more, you know, meaningful things with, you know, color swirl experiments and things of that nature. So it's a really cool dynamic where you have automation and human creativity, you know, harmonized in one roof. So it's, over the past several years, that's where I have been, is just increasing this automation and making all these processes work with our, you know, factory staff.
Yeah, well, the automation has, as Chad mentioned, the production operators have to spend less time with the physical movements because the robots can do that more repeatedly, but the quality control, the operators are able to dedicate much more of their time checking the quality. significantly more. And admittedly, when you have to do all the physical secondary steps needed between trimming the flash, putting the weight on the disc and all that, you can spend all your time checking the quality. So with the automation, it's definitely allowed us to dedicate a lot more time on the quality control. How can we get more disc shops in my area? That is a good question. I guess, where do you normally get your disc? And the question is, do they have what you're looking for? And if they don't have exactly what you're looking for, let them know, because a very good chance that they can talk to us and we can get them what they need. Or if they're having any particular barriers, then let us know. And we definitely want to help them overcome these barriers to make our product more accessible for them. Any thoughts on increasing our presence in Europe, sponsoring players and other? I definitely agree. We've seen substantial growth in the European market. Obviously, we signed a top European pro, Simon Lazat. We've seen more than 200 to 300% growth in the European market. Even some countries has been as high as 400%. We're seeing an explosion of growth in Europe. So the European market's definitely being looked at much more seriously. We've already had some conversations about how we can potentially make that happen. So yes, I think that we will be increasing our presence, Europe and even internationally as a whole. Have you thought about the idea of having a tiered GYROnaut membership with monthly or yearly subscription with merchandise and special discs? It's probably not a top priority for us, but it's definitely something that we want to do eventually. And it was part of the many reasons of our construction of the MVP Pro Shop. But we also want to do in a way that is also suitable for dealers, not just direct to consumer. So we're working out some ideas, but we definitely would like to do something in the future. Well, that kind of wraps up and concludes the most of what Release can cover for now. We were just blown away with the amount of questions and interest in MVP. I really enjoyed reading all the questions. At least we're able to cover a lot of the frequently asked questions and kind of picked out some of our favorites. But we'll definitely try to get more next time.
Yeah, and as Brad says, it was, we're quite blown away with the amount of questions that we received. It was a lot of fun to go through and pick out some interesting topics to cover and answer your questions, and we hope you enjoyed.